We are so back. Welcome back to Soft Crafts. Jerry, do you have anything to say to the class? Hello. So happy to be back making videos. My schedule is now open to make all the content, all the crafting that we can desire. Today I wanted to do stop biting my finger. Today I wanted to do just a basic 101 of knitting. I feel like a lot of the crafts I'm gonna do require basics of crochet and knitting. So I'm gonna do this video for knitting and the next one for crochet, just so we can all have a baseline, because as I was going through the stuff that I wanted to make and I had planned, a lot of it revolves around those two, understandably. So I just want to make sure that we're all on an equal playing field. Obviously, with the projects I'm going to do, most of them are going to be on the beginner side. So this will cover what I'm going to be doing in the future. This specifically is what I would teach in my knit club in New York, so I'm gonna give you the rundown. Knitting has been a huge part of my life for a very long time, and it is just one of those really cathartic acts that kind of focuses you in on what you're doing, and it activates different parts of your mind that can kind of calm anxiety or kind of center yourself, and you can practice mindfulness in that moment. I am not the best at mindfulness, but I think with everything going on and how much I've been kind of focusing on crafting as healing, I'm definitely trying to kind of center the act of knitting around just relaxation, not too much outside noise. I do still watch TV when I knit. Hard to do mindfulness, so hard to practice what I preach, but I'm trying. We're all trying right now. So I think that this is, especially with winter coming up, this is a really helpful activity to do that isn't on your phone. It's not going on technology, obviously, besides to do this, but hopefully once you get this down, you won't have to watch this video and you'll be able to just practice knitting, which is great. So today I'm going to teach you how to do I'm going to teach you how to make a slip knot. I have found through my knitting club that a lot of people don't know how to make a slip knot. So I'm going to teach you how to make a slip knot. I'm going to teach you how to do a long tail cast on, and I'm going to teach you how to do the basic stockinette stitch, which is a combination of knit and purl. And then I'm going to teach you how to cast off. Today I'm going to be making a small little swatch for a bigger project that I will be making a video on. So this is just to get the tension, the measurements, and to deal with the patterning of it. I will go into that in the next video. I feel like it'll be too much to try and explain a gauge swatch while you're trying to get the basics of knitting. If you already know how to knit, brush up on it with this. This is going to be a nice refresher. Maybe I have some techniques that you don't. Who knows? So I'm going to be doing most of this in the POV. I don't know why I'm talking with my hands so much. I think I normally talk with my hands this much, but I just don't realize it. But now I can see it, and it is obnoxious. I'm going to be teaching how to do English style knitting. I am also learning how to do continental style, which is a lot quicker, but if you don't have those finger muscles yet, it's a lot harder. It's a similar act to crochet, and with like the holding of the yarn and whatnot. Down the line, maybe I will do another video on how to go into continental style, but I feel most comfortable teaching English, so that is what we're gonna learn today. So let's get into the tutorial. What do you think about it? He's ready. Let's do it. So I'm also forgot to mention that I'm going to be doing a striped gauge swatch. So if you want to learn how to do striping, follow along. And if you don't, just disregard when I talk about changing colors and just keep knitting up. It's the same technique. It's super simple. Okay, so first we're gonna get into needles and yarn. I'm making something, I usually like to work with small needles, small yarn. It gives off a very similar, this isn't hand knit, but it gives off a very similar look and fineness as this hat. This is on the machine, but I usually like to work with that. You can kind of, it takes longer, but it looks a little cleaner. But for the project that I'm working on, which is, it's gonna be a curtain. I'm gonna do something chunkier so I can kind of work through it. And I'm gonna be using a lot of scrap yarn that I had from Knit Club. So I just have an excess of bulkier yarns. Bulky yarn, I will say also, is a lot easier to learn on because you're not dealing with the tight tension, you're dealing with bigger stitches. It's just easier, and I think it's best to go bigger and then kind of work your way down to the finer stuff. From experience of teaching knitting, people who start on the finer gauge, it's a little, you get caught up in like trying to see the stitches and everything. So when it's bigger, it just becomes, it's all in front of you. So today we're gonna be using 15 millimeter needles. These are from We Are Knitters. There we go. Great brand. Both of these brands are amazing wool brands, super user-friendly. I've mostly worked with these when teaching people how to knit. So I'm gonna be doing two slightly different weights of yarn. This is a true bulky yarn. I'm not really proficient in the fine gauges of like what they actually are, but this is a chunkier gauge wool, super fluffy, super fun. And then I will be using a slightly smaller gauge weight. I keep mixing up gauge and weight. A finer gauge of my brain. I'm gonna be using a finer weight yarn. It's not much finer, but you will see the difference of using this yarn versus this yarn on the bulkier needles. But like I said, for the project I'm doing, it doesn't need to be fully tight, closed in. I like the look sometimes of it being a little looser, the different weights of yarn creating different gaps in the stitches. It's a personal preference thing. But specifically for the bulkier yarn, 15 is gonna be a very easy knit. You're not gonna have to be like struggling with the tension so much. So make sure you have your materials, and if you're just plain old knitting, just needles and some yarn and some scissors. Also, these are from Wool and the Gang, is the other brand. So We Are Knitters, Wool and the Gang. Both great, both very user-friendly, both friends. Okay. I say, okay. Don't be like me. Okay. For this tension swatch, we are gonna go grab the end of your yarn, pull arm's length. You don't even need this much. How much you pull is depending on how much you're casting on. So if you're casting on something really long, you're gonna wanna make sure your tail, which is what I'm gonna be referring the end piece to, you're gonna wanna make sure you have more than less. So many times I've been casting on something and I run out of the tail and I either have to tie more on or I need to just take it off and recast on and add more. So I always err on the more is less, but since I'm doing a small tension swatch of maybe around 10 stitches, I'm just gonna grab around this much. So pull out your yarn, and then you're going to drop it down so you're holding on to just that little fold from where you pulled it out. So it should be going down like this. And throughout the whole time, even when I'm in POV mode, the end is going to be referred to as the tail, and the yarn that is connected to the ball of yarn is ball yarn. So tail, ball yarn. Okay, remember when I said I was going in POV mode? Oh, hi Jerry. I'm not. The lighting, the focusing, it's not working out. I'm just gonna show you like this. So, like I said, tail yarn, ball yarn, you're gonna want to pinch the side, you're gonna want to pinch the middle of where you pulled out and drop it down. Then with the tail yarn in front, you're gonna want to cross it over. So you have a loop with the piece of yarn in front, like that. So facing away from you, this yarn will be in front, but you want the tail yarn to cross in front of the loop. So once you get here, you're gonna stick your fingers through the loop and grab that tail yarn and pull. You don't want to pull it all the way through like you would a normal knot. Once you get it to about here, you're going to grab and pull up. So that's what makes it a slip knot, is you can just slip it out. So you're gonna grab the tail yarn side, loop it so it's in front with your fingers, pull through, grab that piece of yarn, and pull down. What's great about a slip knot is that you can, when you pull on the tail side, it makes it smaller, and when you pull on the ball yarn side with a little finagling, it makes it bigger. This is imperative to how you start off your tension. So you're gonna be starting off with just one needle. We're gonna introduce the other one after we get into the actual knitting, but for now, just one in your hand. So you're gonna take the needle and put that first stitch on. And then you're gonna pull so it's right up on there. You never want it too tight. You always wanna make sure that you can move it back. You can move it back and forth. I have taught many adults how to do this, and the biggest thing that we run into all the time is tension. You are never gonna regret going too loose, and you are always gonna regret going too tight. Down the line when you start knitting, when it's too tight, you're gonna just be like, you never wanna be tight and struggling with the yarn. You always wanna feel like you have control over it. So if you're feeling that, take it off, restart. I would go up to people and their projects, it would not be working, and I'd say, look, let's just restart. You're gonna only get better with the muscle memory of casting on and doing these first initial steps. So I think start over more often than you think. So with the needle in your right hand, I like to put my pointer finger to brace the stitch so it doesn't fall off. And if it does, a lot of stitches are gonna fall off, but don't freak out. Remember, you can just put them back on. So grabbing both of the strands of yarn with your bottom 3 fingers, you're gonna grab those yarns, and then you're gonna see that there's a little hole in there. You're gonna take your pointer finger and your thumb, and you're gonna spread it open like a diamond. So you grab with the bottom 3, stick your fingers in, and then where you had that finger braced, you're gonna bring the needle down so it's parallel to your hand. You don't want it like that. You don't want it like that. You want it fully parallel. And you're gonna see that there's 2 loops. I'm gonna call them little bunny ears. This loop is gonna be fully crossed and closed, and you always wanna make sure you see that. If you don't see that, you don't have the hand positioning right. This one is not gonna be closed. That's not gonna matter. So you have your diamond set up, you're fully down. So now we're gonna start in the cast on. You're gonna go up through the thumb. So you're gonna go up. You wanna make sure, not through here, not through here. You wanna make sure it's through that fully closed loop. And then going around the side, not in, you always wanna go around. You're gonna scoop that piece of yarn through the hole. Not bad? Okay. You're gonna be doing this many times. So here, let me adjust this angle so you can see a little better. So you got grab bottom 3 with your pointer and thumb, make the diamond, close it to make the loops. Then you go up through the thumb, hook that around, and you see I just slide it through. And then let go, and then pull. You're gonna be pulling on the tail side. So, hands, diamond, through, up through the thumb, catch that innermost piece of yarn and just guide it back through the hole you were just in. Okay, I'm gonna do some on the POV mode, see how the angle works out, and then I will come back. So we're here, grab with the bottom 3 fingers, create the diamond, pull it down. Yeah, it's easier to see here. So you go up through the thumb, scoop that piece of yarn, and then pull it through the same hole. And then I like to do it where I'm still holding it, and then I just pull. So you can see how this braid is forming at the bottom. This is gonna be the bottom of the knitting, and everything will go down from there. Not actually. So 3 fingers, open diamond, bunny ears, up through the thumb. You always wanna go around, not under, always around. So you can just, you see how you can just like guide it through that hole? You always just want to push it through and release. So I'm going to just finish up these slowly so you can just get a hang of the rhythm. Up, around, through. Up, around, through. Up, around, through. Up, around, through. So once you get a little more comfortable with the act, it just becomes kind of a less step-based act and more of a big swoop. I'm going to do 2 more. Okay. Boom. So you'll see my tail, your tail is always going to get smaller, and that's normal because you are using it to create these stitches. And you always, like I said, you always want to have this at the bottom. You don't want it at the top. You don't want it at the side, twisted. No, you want it nice and neat at the bottom. And the more it comes down, the more you're going to be able to use it as kind of like an anchor for you to hold on to. Mode, I think this translates the best. So now we are going to be introducing the second needle. You're always going to have your stitches, your working stitches in the left hand, and then the stitches that you are going to be knitting, adding the new rows to, on your right hand. Jerry, move. I'm sorry, I have to work. So the act of knitting is very similar to the long tail cast on. Some tips I have moving forward is try and keep the yarn, the stitches closer to the tip. You don't want to have to be going down to grab it. They're not going to fall off, and if they do, like I said, the yarn is big, you can just slip it back on. So you're basically going to be almost replacing your hands with the needle and stitches. Same movement as the cast on, just a little more. Honestly, it's a little easier, I would say. So first, you're going to make sure the yarn is in your right hand. I like to just stick it through my fingers and just have it there. You are not going to be using this tail anymore. The tail, it's done. It's just going to be moving down with that braiding and just be at the end of your knit. So to start, you're going to go up through that first stitch. So you can see the first stitch, it has that same loop fully closed. So you want to make sure you're going up through that first stitch and cross to the back. Not cross forward, you want it to be crossed like an X to the back. So you can see how both needles are going through that first stitch. So this is when you're going to grab your yarn, your ball yarn, and you're going to wrap it counterclockwise just around the back needle. So it's not even a full wrap, it's just bringing it back to the front. So you can see how that yarn that we just did is crossing and cutting that stitch in half. So if you don't see it looking like that, you don't have the yarn in the right place. So similar to how we did it before, scooping it in, you're going to scoop that piece of yarn just through that same stitch that you put it through. So you're going to go just bring it under, and you're going to feel like, oh, I'm done. No. Whenever you pull a stitch through, you take one off. So you're basically going to be transferring all the stitches from this side to this side. So the first stitch is a little weird sometimes because it has the tail yarn, but only for the first row are you going to do that first stitch. For the rest, you were going to skip that first stitch. I will explain. So then we go up, cross to the back. You see how it's both in the same one. Take your yarn, counterclockwise wrap, so it's cutting that stitch in half. And I like to use my fingers to kind of maneuver the needle. So then you can just literally using your finger, just guide it through that same stitch. And remember, this is another thing that I always see. You are not done when you are here. Whenever you pull one through, you pop it off. And then you can kind of see that stitch starting to form. So you go up. You don't have to go too far. You can just keep it tight like that. Got it crossed, front to back, or back to front, guide it through. So you can see that is the stitch, and we're just guiding it through and lifting off. So I'm gonna do just some slow ones. Cross, pull it through, lift off. You should always have the same amount of stitches as you started with. See, a lot of people will go here, they bring it through, and they think, oh, and then knit back into that same one, but always, always, always pop it off. You're gonna see that knitting is just pulling loops through loops. So once it starts growing more, you're gonna kind of see the actual structure of it. And then I feel like once you understand the actual structure more, these movements are gonna feel like they're gonna make more sense. So you cross over, back to front, pop it through that same hole, and lift off. Up, cross to the back, wrap counterclockwise, bring it through that same stitch. So I'm gonna finish off this row. And I think the more you watch people do it, the easier it becomes. So I'll just boom. And then once it feels like it's getting too clumpy up here, just pull it down a little bit. So then up, cross to the back, wrap around just the back needle so it crosses that yarn, and then using your finger, just guide the tip through that same hole. Cross to the back, wrap, guide it back. In through the hole, wrap around, out through the same hole. So you can see how it's starting to build up. Boom, wrap, boom, up. And then for the last stitch, you're gonna just do the same. Okay. You can pull it down a little bit, but voila, we have our first row of knitting. So now you brought all of the stitches from this needle to this needle. And like I said, the working stitches always go on the left. So you're gonna switch sides and you are now moving on to the next row. So what's different about this technique that I'm teaching is on each side, there's two different stitches. So this, where you can see all these little bubbles, this is the purl side. This, where it's all flat and kind of how you'd normally see a knit, this is the knit side. So every time you see this on the front, you're gonna do the stitch that I just showed you. And every time you see these bubbles, you're gonna do this next stitch. So for all of the other rows besides the first one, only because the first one, that first stitch is a little flimsy because of having the tail there and it being a slip knot. So for every first row going on, you're gonna slip the stitch from here to here. Very simple. Going in towards it, you're just gonna move it from one side to another. So you can pull it down if you need more space. So just going in towards it, pop, can move it up, and then just bring it to the other side. Very simple. You're gonna be doing that at the start of every row. It just creates a nice edge along the side. So because we're doing purl stitch, instead of working in the back, everything we're gonna be doing is in the front. So you're gonna bring the yarn from back to front, and it's gonna live there for this stitch, for the purl stitch. So similar movement, but instead of crossing up and back, you're gonna be crossing down. You're gonna go down through the stitch and have it cross to the front. So you're basically doing the same movement, but instead of looking at it this way, see how it's crossed to the back like normal, you're looking at it from the back side. So you're gonna go down through the stitch, cross to the front, and then going counterclockwise, again, you're going to wrap the yarn. Similar thing, you see how it crosses that first stitch? You can't really see it from here, but it crosses that first stitch and creates that same little, here, that's better to see it. So you can see how the yarn that we brought forward, it's hooking on your needle, and you're gonna pull it through and pull it off. So once you get a hang of that knit stitch, you're gonna feel like this makes a lot of sense. So you're gonna go down, and I like to just kind of hold it with my fingers, whatever feels. If you wanna stick it, have it rest on the floor. I know some people rest it on their stomachs. I just have developed large muscles in my hands, so I can just hold it. Maybe some of you can too. So you're going down through the first stitch, crossing to the front, wrapping around counterclockwise, and then pulling it through, and then lifting it off. So down, counterclockwise wrap, using your thumb to just guide it through that same hole, and then pop it off. So down, cross, wrap, pushing your thumb to lock it in, and then lift it off. I feel like every time I describe this, I use a different, like, lock it in, loops through loops. They just come to me. So you can really see how it's starting to build up. So cross down, around, push through, off. Down, around, push through, off. So I'm going to do some kind of more normal speed ones so you can see a bit more of the movement. And then again, once it gets too far down here, you just push it up a little bit and you keep rocking. And then again, you can pull down. The knit is going to be, it's going to start to grow bigger than what you cast it on, which is why people make gauge swatches, because casting it on, it's a lot tighter. And then once you actually start to knit, it grows out. So wrap, push through, wrap, push through, wrap, push through, lift off. So once you get to the last stitch, just like I said for that first stitch, how you're gonna keep slipping it to the other side, no matter what row you're on, no matter what side, you're always gonna do the normal knit stitch for this last one. So when you get to that last stitch, instead of working in the front, you're gonna be working in the back again. So you can just bring that yarn from front to back and then do your normal cross to the back, wrap, guide that yarn through. And these end stitches are always gonna feel a little loose. I feel like it just kind of corrects itself, but if you feel like it's getting too loose, just pull it tighter on these last stitches. So again, then we switch from the right hand to the left hand, and now we are back on the knit side. Boom. Okay, now we have our green yarn, our finer yarn. So the only other time you're not going to do a slip stitch on that first stitch besides the first row is when you're adding in a color. So it is basically the same exact movement, except when you cross up, instead of grabbing this and wrapping it around, you're just gonna place the new yarn in. I just, with the tail on the back, I just lay it down and then hold on to it and then pull it through. So you can see how this, if it gets tight, you just pull it down. The first stitch is gonna be a little a little weird and might be a little loose, but that will correct itself. So now you have the new yarn in. You're gonna go up to the back, wrap it around, and lift off. So with the smaller yarn, you're gonna see that it starts creating a little bit bigger of an opening in the stitches, which actually looks quite nice. So you're just gonna go up and back, wrap. I think it's easier to see the movement of it like this, so you can see where it really crosses and how you're just guiding that stitch through. So boom, wrap. And you're just gonna, don't cut this piece of yarn. You're just going to leave that hanging. So up, cross to the back, wrap around, push that yarn through. So I'm just gonna do it kind of slow so you can see. Always knit that last stitch. And then boom, your new color is in play now. You're gonna be able to see it more after we do the purl row. And then you can just pull, pull. So now we're back to just doing the normal slip stitch, go through and just transfer one stitch to the other side. Then bring the yarn from back to front and we're back. So down, cross to the front, wrap, push that yarn through the same stitch. Down, cross, boom. I love the sound of wood needles scraping against each other. It's very ASMR. So then this last stitch, because you have the tail and you just kind of brought it in casually, will be a little looser, but remember, bring the yarn from the front to the back and knit. You can just pull, pull, and voila. So now you can see the blue with the thicker yarn and the green with the thinner yarn. And you're gonna be able to see more of the difference once we start getting into the striping. So I'm gonna be doing it as a 2, 2, 2, 2. So every 2 rows, I'm going to switch colors. And now I do my color work like this because I don't care if there's loops. So you'll understand what I mean. So instead of cutting the yarn and adding it back in, I'm just gonna bring it up. So you'll see. So same with every color change, you're gonna knit that first stitch. So instead of grabbing the green, you're gonna grab the blue and do your normal wrap around. It's easy to split stitches with this yarn, so be careful. So you can pull the green tight, but you want to make sure that first stitch has, because you're bringing it from there to there, you don't want to make sure it's so tight that it's pulling it down and making one side tighter than the other. You want to make sure that yarn has some space to breathe. It looks jumbled on the side, just, it's okay, guys. It's not perfect. Up, around. Okay, so by this point, you should be feeling kind of good with the knit stitch. And there you go. Okay, so we've made it to the cast off. This cast off is super simple. You're going to be basically knitting 2 stitches together, and when you bring it to that side, you're gonna bring that stitch back. It's gonna make sense. For the cast off also, I like to do a slightly different way of knitting it. Instead of going up through both stitches, I like to go through both in the back. So you're going down. It's a little hard with this angle. You're gonna go down through both and then still have that cross up, and then wrap like you normally would, pull through, and you're gonna lift both of those stitches off, and then you're gonna bring that stitch back. So going in this way through the back of both of those stitches, cross it up, loop your yarn around, and then pull that yarn through both stitches. So you can see how you're basically knitting the 2 together, you're bringing this back, and it's gonna start closing off the knit. The more you do it, the more you will see. So you always bring the stitch back. You never wanna have anything on this. So through the back of those 2, cross up, loop around, and pull that yarn through, and then bring the yarn back to the other side. See? So once you get to that last one, you're gonna do the same. Wrap, pull through, pull, and then you can kind of pull it out so it doesn't fall apart. And then you're gonna cut the end where it's attached to the ball, and then just pull the rest of the yarn through. And then you can just kind of pull it up, mess with the stitches a little bit. And boom. Okay, so now we have our swatch. I like to do swatches before most projects, especially if it has measurements to it. When I get to my patterned project that I'm going to do, I will show you how to check your gauge and how to pattern it for that. But this was just to get the basics down, the basic stitches that I'm going to be using in a lot of my tutorials. So I just wanted to get the normal stitches down, and if I ever get into any more techniques, I will teach them specifically, but this was just normal 101. And I did, let's see how many stitches I did. I did 15 stitches and 14 rows, not including the first cast on. So it'll get you like a little trivet type pot for the table thing. But also, if you just keep going for as long as you can, you'll get a scarf. But if you are just learning, just keep going, keep restarting. You saw how quick I did that. Obviously, it might not be as quick for you at the beginning, but I think the more you restart and kind of learn the anatomy of the stitch and how the piece actually comes together, it's going to start making more sense when you start learning how to move stitches and how to do knit togethers and decreases. That's the same thing. Decreases and increases. I think once you get this down, all of that is going to be a lot easier, and you'll be able to do a lot more of the patterns and whatnot that I show here. So yes, this was Knitting 101. I am going to do another one on crochet very soon because I'm realizing a lot of I was not a big crocheter, but I'm now realizing that a lot of the tutorials I have are crochet heavy. I'm gonna keep a good mix because I don't want this to just be crochet because this is all crafts, but there are a lot of fun ones. So I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. But thank you so much. We did it. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. Just remember to keep breathing. Center yourself in small things. Do this with a friend. Teach each other. Join an imp. Go to your local craft store. Support your small yarn businesses. With that being said, this was Soft Crafts, and I will see you next time.